There are always a lot of comics coming out, so let's do a rapid fire roundup. Let's review 3. Today we're going to be focusing on Ghost Machine, and the entries will be Hyde Street number 2, The Rocketfellers number 1, and Hornsby and Halo number 1. I'm Sasha, this is Casually Comics, and today we're going to be doing things a bit more casually. I know, perish the thought. If you haven't heard of Ghost Machine, they're a new, time of recording, company. Newish. We're coming up on a couple years now. Their works are published through Image. It was founded by Jeff Johns and many other creators with a focus on creator ownership and control. It launched out of the gate with a few titles, but has since grown to 4 separate universes, all contained underneath the same company. And again, time of recording, everything's subject to change, maybe. Who knows when you're watching this? The works we'll be looking at today will be from the Hyde Street universe, which is the bit of the horror section, and from the Family Odysseys universe, which is the more family-oriented type fare, as one could probably glean from the name. But the works do oftentimes have cheeky references to each other. Lots of times it's hidden in the art, names on stores, action figures, posters, that kind of thing. However, a preview for Rocketfellers 2 did show a giant splash page with snippets of all the universes. So who knows what the future holds? Since we already have a whole in-depth video on Hyde Street number 1, we'll start off this video looking at Hyde Street number 2. This comic was written by Jeff Johns and Ivan Reyes, with Reyes on art, Danny Mickey on inks, and Brad Anderson on colors. Hyde Street takes place for the most part on the street of the same name. It's a kind of off the beaten path space between realities. It's a space where unlucky but oftentimes deserving individuals find themselves where the denizens who reside there then compete for their souls to give to a mysterious scorekeeper who we got to see in issue number 2. The characters highlighted so far by the book have been Mr. X-Ray and Pranky. Overall, the book has a bit of a Twilight Zone vibe thanks to the narration style and concept. The first issue focused mostly on Mr. X-Ray, but it also established his and Pranky's rivalry, as well as some of the inner workings of the street. While it featured an extensive flashback to Mr. X's past, it did not show how he ultimately came to reside on the street, although it was clear that Pranky was in some way involved. That issue was about his quest and desire to leave, or at least that was where he was coming from. Issue 2 flips the focus to Pranky, and the clever reversal is more focused on why he wants to stay. Meet Pip Pranky Peabody, a young boy in uniform with a desire for belonging, yet behind this vision of youthful promise lies a twisted mind. A rebel by both choice and necessity, his oath will become a dark one, not to help but to harm. Sworn to a sinister tallyman, keeper of a grim score of sinful souls, escorted to a fate beyond death, and for reasons steeped in dangerous secrecy. Pranky's misspent youth will stretch into eternity, but like all the strange residents trapped on this perilous passage, he had a life before Hyde Street, in the Twilight Zone. I jest, but I love that kind of narration, I really do. Pranky's story also leans into the concept that the people who end up on Hyde Street are seemingly less than savory. For while Pranky does have a sad backstory, he's still dangerous and ultimately monstrous. There were some hints to him having a bit more of a ghoulish appearance in issue 1, and issue 2 really leans into that and plays it up. And because Pranky wants to be there and enjoys hunting for souls, this issue has a darker tone and makes more use of the blatant monster/demon style horror imagery. Another factor that works in this issue's favor in terms of building up Pranky as a character is that despite the fact that he's been on Hyde Street for some time, there's still a childlike pettiness to his actions in how he targets people and the ways that he uses to capture them. And that makes him not sympathetic, but more rounded than he otherwise would be. This issue also expands more on the rules of Hyde Street and how Pranky is breaking them. Now, in terms of the soul hunting aspect of the story, that follows more familiar beats. There's not really a moment here, if one is familiar with anthology horror fare, that should prove shocking or go in a direction one didn't anticipate. But what is there is very well executed. And there are lots of nice details that loop back and build on each other in terms of dialogue, or how things are being replicated or paralleled from Pranky's history. His choice of victim, the Boy Scout imagery, it's all very tight. It's a good issue that works well in its place as issue 2, as it also by default makes Mr. X the more sympathetic protagonist, since he's actually trying to leave and doesn't seem to enjoy what they do as much as Pranky. And having both characters clearly set up is a good lead up for issue 3, where it looks like the two are going to have to work together. So far in this series, there's a balance between the anthology-like elements and the overarching plot. If you like that kind of Twilight Zone, Night Gallery energy, but with a more continuous plot and a couple of central characters of varying degrees of moral fortitude, then Hyde Street may be up your alley. If you don't, or you're looking for something that may shock you or go in more directions that one wasn't fully anticipating, or if horror, and especially creepy kids, is not your thing, this may not be for you. Different strokes for different folks, but it's time to hop universes. The Rocketfellers number 1. This was written by Peter J. Tomasi and Francis Manapul, with Manapul on art, all of it. I did an interview with Francis about the creative process and this book, so if you're interested in that, I will link it down below. He also has his own channel where he talks about these things and art in general, so you can check that out too. As for this issue, Rocketfellers #1, it's more of a grower. Let me explain. Firstly, like the majority of the new Ghost Machine titles, there was a preview for the Rocketfellers and the Ghost Machine Special #1. That issue varied on how much the various snippets played into their first issues. Some were more important to them than others. The Rocketfellers is one where it's more important because a lot of the setup of the core concept, which is that the Rocketfellers are a family from the future who are hiding back in time, is established. I also have to really make sure that I'm saying Rocketfellers, not Rockefellers. It's so easy to fall into. They even make a joke about that in issue #1. So, how's the future? Good news is it's still here, Roland. Okay, give it to me straight. What are the current threat levels? Is my family in danger? You know the answer to that. Until we find Vertex, everyone has to remain vigilant. And most important of all, you have to make sure we blend in here in the past. Yes, Reggie, I'm aware of our objective. This teaser also sets up the family dynamics between the characters and some of the differences they're experiencing between the present and the future. It would actually be cool if when the trade is released, if that is added to it in some place. Maybe not as the first story because issue 1 does have a strong opening. It's exciting and has lots of action, but perhaps just somewhere in the book because it really is something that enhances the experience. Issue #1 starts off with the family fleeing to the past. And it's both a cute and exciting sequence because you get some family banter at the start before things kick off. And then you have the villain reveal and the chase portion. Roland must be captured alive. All their family members are expendable. A lot happens in this first half of the opening in terms of character sacrifices and hints at deeper connections between some of the characters, particularly in terms of their pursuer. A little over half of the book is them fleeing, and then the latter half is them trying to fit into their new timeline, as well as the little things they do to try and still feel at home when they miss their own time, because they're all going through different things. For example, the son Richie is missing his girlfriend who he had to leave behind, whereas the mother Rachel is longing for the career that she had. Roland is stressing about whether they're actually safe or not, and the fact that he can tell even after a year that his family isn't really acclimating, and neither is he. And that's just a few of the members. They're all going through different things. What I mean by this being a grower is that despite its intense opening, it has slow burn energy. It's setting up a lot of different plot threads and emotional dilemmas for the characters, and there are a decent amount of characters. So I can see some coming out of this first issue and feeling that it didn't really have a hook, or not finding things the most exciting overall because the excitement is off the bat, and that tapers off more into a domestic slice of life type vibe until the very last panel. However, if one connects on an emotional level with one or more of the Rocketfellers, this issue may feel very resonant, because so many of the problems the characters are going through are things many people could potentially relate to. If well executed, these opening issues could provide a firm emotional foundation for when the action does start to kick off, because one will be firmly embedded in the stakes for each character. But it depends how it ends up with balance in terms of action and more domestic moments. And in terms of that, time will tell. There are some moments in this issue where despite everything going on, it feels positively cozy vibes. And it does have a hook at the end that leads into the question of why they have to go back, why are they hiding there? But the urgency surrounding that isn't quite there yet. This is the family part of the Ghost Machine universe, so it makes sense that that's the foregrounded element. Contrast to, say, Rook Exodus, which is also a sci-fi work, but there's the tech nature elements that lead more there, and Rook's story grew more as the issues went on. So it depends on what one is looking for. Personally, I foresee the Rocketfellers reading really nicely as a complete arc. Little chunks. But we shall see. And one more. We have room for one more. Hornsby and Halo #1. Hornsby and Halo is by Peter J. Tomasi and Peter Schneipier, who's also on art, and John Kalitz on colors. Hornsby and Halo, the comic that made me tear up for a panel, even though I'm not sure if it was supposed to. Hornsby and Halo starts off with a very intentionally detailed concept. It's setting itself up on firm ground, and there is no missing what this is about because they just lay it out. And unlike the Rocketfellers, this one doesn't really feel as bolstered by its snippet inside the Ghost Machine special. One can go into this without that, and the vibe actually feels a bit different between those two. The premise for this comic is that Hornsby and Halo are both heirs to their respective sides of a demonic and angelic conflict. Hornsby, the girl on the Inferno side, and Halo, the boy on the Empyrean side. After a particularly brutal battle of a war that has been waging between the two sides, they propose a truce. The classic let's trade kids. Only instead of new godsing it, with the exchange being between them as it was with Orion and Scott Free, they instead send the children to human parents. There's a neutral arbiter who decides. But the caveat is that the parents will have the opposing moral fibers to the children's base natures, so that they can test the concept of nature versus nurture. The why is presented so far, although it appears that maybe that could be subject to change because there are rogue elements and the like, is that hopefully that will give each of the children a nuanced view of the other side. That in order to maintain the peace, they need to understand each other's positions. And so they were taken from all that they knew, away from the dancing flames, away from soaring through endless blue skies, innocently oblivious to the monumental change that was coming? Can Zachary and Rose build bridges of balance and harmony between their disparate worlds? Or will fear and hate envelop them for millennia to come? These were the panels that made me tear up. The babies being ripped from their parents. It got me in the mom feels. I wasn't ready. So this is the setup for one of the bigger conflicts in the book, and the backbone of the emotional conflict. What will these two's base natures be like when placed in these contrasting environments? Which will win? Miles will vary as to whether or not this is an interesting question to contemplate for some. If one already feels like they have a firm answer, whichever it is, nature or nurture, then this element of the conflict may fall a bit flat. There is also the fact that for Halo, the book feels like it's straddling a line in terms of making his home life negative, but not too negative, at least so far as of issue 1. Whereas it doesn't have that same energy over on the Hornsby side, where it can just be mega good. It feels like it doesn't want to veer too much into uncomfortable territory where one could go. But that's likely a good thing based on the general energy and vibe this seems to be going for, which is ultimately more family friendly. We don't need to go as far into the negative moral fiber as could be gone, although some will argue that they wish that it would. The one detail that could be missed if one didn't read the teaser is that the two are being observed. Now the two do know each other and don't get along all that well, at least as of this issue, which does a good job artistically at hinting at their different origins and narratively at letting little details of their natures come through, but also the fact that they have been impacted by their environments. So it is working through what it set up at the top. And it does have another hook, which for some may be a bit more fun, which is that the two are now manifesting their more ethereal forms and carrying out actions as them. Overall for this one, a lot is going to depend on whether or not one gels with the core concept, whether they find it derivative or overexplored. Nature versus nurture is something that has been mined many a time, and the child swap is not the newest way to approach it, but some of the other added elements may make it feel more fresh to some, or the tone overall may win them over, which is the fact that it feels fairly fun. The kids feel like kids in this, and there's a sense of adventure to it. And by the end, there's an energy of hoping that the two will find each other in the context of that they have this shared history. But it also runs the risk of falling into some well-worn tropes, and then it all depends on the execution. Tropes aren't inherently bad, but when they're very familiar, it depends upon how one does them, or if one brings something new to them. So far, it seems to be going well. It did have a very deliberate setup, and with that laid out, perhaps now it can branch out a little bit. It was a fun issue, and with its bright, peppy colors, something I could see kids really liking. I'm scared it's gonna make me cry again at some point, though. Gonna have to ice my heart up. Form of desensitization. But all of these are just my quick rapid fire thoughts, and I want to hear yours. Quick, tell me everything, or more detailed. I want to hear it all. Did you like these issues? Did you read them? Which was your favorite? Did you not enjoy them? I want to hear the whys and the why nots. What's working for you? What isn't? Do you like this format for this type of video? Let me know by doing all the YouTube things. Like, share, comment, subscribe, hit the bell notification so that you never miss a vid. I always appreciate it, and I will see you again soon. Bye-bye.